Chapter 78. For the first time in centuries, Ryan woke up at peace with himself. Certainly, he had had good mornings in the past. Waking up next to Jasmine would remain one of his most cherished memories. But nothing could compare to this beautiful moment. His body was numb from the endorphins. The tension in his muscles had long vanished. He could have stayed in his bed all day, smiling at the ceiling. Ryan Romano was happy. It took a Herculean effort of will to rise up and put on his presidential costume, for he still had work to do. As he dressed, the courier glanced at the hole a robot made in his bowler hat. One loop ago, the cruel sight would have triggered an epic, city-destroying rampage. But not today. Ryan emerged from his room smiling behind his mask, and found Frank keeping watch in front of the doors. The giant immediately welcomed him with a military salute. "Good morning, Mr. President." "Nothing to report." Ryan smiled at the poor, deluded creature, his heart full of warmth and compassion. "Agent Frank," he said while putting a hand on the man's back, though he had to stand on his toes. "You are the greatest hero this nation's ever had. You are everything an American citizen should be." His kind words shook the Titan to the core. Frank would have cried, if he wasn't made of metal. "Thank you, Mr. President. Everything I do is to honor my father. He died from a KFC overdose while hanging Nazis with a lasso. A most American way to die. He would be so proud of you, son." Though Ryan would have to make sure Frank and Len never ended up in the same room. He had the intuition it would backfire. Leaving his favorite guard to his watch, Ryan moved into the recreational area while whistling to himself. He didn't care about the hanged gremlins dangling from the ceiling, or how Rakshasa struggled to clean up a blood puddle on the floor. Everything just felt right. "Oh, you're awake, boss." Ryan glanced at the speaker, noticing Saren playing pool with Mosquito. The bugman had bandages all over his shoulders and wings. "We've got a problem. The rabbits kept pestering the kids to play outside, and they moved into the junkyard after killing all the gremlins. They flogged me when I tried to stop them," Mosquito complained, pointing at the bandages. "They flogged me. That too." "It's okay," Ryan replied calmly. "If the plush eyes didn't destroy the world today, it would be something else, like an asteroid or a plague. No biggie." Hazmat Girl didn't look convinced. "Didn't you stress that your rabbits shouldn't go outside under any circumstance, my dear lovely Saren?" Ryan put his hands on his vice president's shoulders. "Everything is going to be fine. I promise you, darling." "Are you high?" she asked while abandoning her cue, sounding disgusted with her superior. "I know we have a juice production facility, but what's the saying? Don't get high on your own product. I know, I ran a drug cartel. Which turned out great. Saren, I have something to say. You're not the best sidekick I had, that would be the panda, but I like you. I like you very much." Saren pushed Ryan back and raised a vibrating fist in his direction. He had opened his heart to her, and that was how she reacted. "Okay, what's wrong with you? You're weirder than usual." "I feel like being nice today," Ryan said, letting out a sigh of pure bliss. No cruel joke, no sarcasm, no mean remarks. Just pure kindness. "Well, get back to normal, you're creeping the shit out of me." "I prefer him this way," Mosquito said, immediately trying to exploit the situation. "Does that mean we get free juice today, since you're in a good mood?" "Of course, dear leech," Ryan said, the bugman loudly rejoicing. "Enjoy your day off, my friends. For tomorrow, we'll go to war." Manada's ultimatum expired the day after, and while Ryan had a plan to get rid of him, it would involve a clash with Illinois Migliore. Perhaps even the Carnival, if the two groups already made contact during this loop. Now that the president had secured his White House and electoral base, he would take the city by storm. The elevator to the lower levels opened before Ryan could explain his plan to his trusty minions. Mongrel stepped out first, followed by a blonde woman with bloodshot eyes. She kept her head down and avoided others' gazes, as if afraid of overstepping. It took Ryan a split second to recognize Acid Rain. Her behavior, her posture, the way she moved. Everything but her appearance had changed. She gave off an entirely different vibe than the murderous maidwoman the courier had grown used to. Her posture screamed meek. "Rain?" Mosquito asked, probably expecting the violent maniac to flip out and murder them. "Rain, is that you?" I'm Helen." Even her voice wasn't the same, now that she didn't scream all the time. "That's my real name." "Helen. Who let you out?" Saren asked, pointing her hands at her. "The doc. He said that the treatment worked." Acid Rain scratched the back of her head as everyone looked at her in shock, before smiling sheepishly at Ryan. "Sorry I tried to kill you before. I wasn't thinking straight." "It's okay, I forgive you." Ryan's heart overflowed with compassion, and Saren lowered her gauntlets. "I'm just happy you still have all your hair." "Chemo worked on me too," Mongrel spoke, his voice surprising in its mundness. Saren's head immediately turned in his direction. "You can talk." "Yeah, though my brain hurts when I speak." Mongrel held his head in his hand. "I think my gray matter slowly fills the void left by the tumors. I feel like I'm waking up from a long nightmare," Acid Rain said, smiling at Ryan. "Thanks for helping. I'm truly grateful, like you wouldn't believe. But our current treatment won't last forever, from what I gathered," Mongrel complained with a groan. "Which sucks." "No, it wouldn't. Genome's enhanced metabolisms meant they developed a tolerance to chemical products much quicker than normal humans. Eventually, their mutations would adapt to all chemo's treatment, and the two psychos would descend back into madness. But that was the worst-case scenario, and Ryan knew he would make it right. "We have the tools to figure out a permanent solution," he said, glancing at Mongrel. "I have the feeling we'll need your assistance though." "Ain't gonna fight you on this," Mongrel said. "I don't wanna go back to eating rats, you dig? Never asked for that." "You drank, like, 5 knockoffs," Saren pointed out, unsympathetic to his plight. "You were already barely better than a dog when Adam found you scavenging trash." Mongrel shuddered. "I found a white elixir while looting old Rome's ruins, but it didn't do anything. I read white genomes affected other genomes, but I couldn't get my power to work. So I figured, hey, there's gotta be faulty elixirs lying around, and I drew the short end of the stick. I already planned on buying a knockoff before I found my original, so." Ryan guessed how it went, a shiver down his spine. "You drank a knockoff since you believed yourself powerless, and you turned into a psycho." Mongrel's ability allowed him to stockpile more than one elixir. By itself, it did nothing. Much like how Casper the Ghost only transformed post-mortem, some powers needed very specific circumstances to activate, misleading their users. "Yeah," Mongrel confirmed with a nod. "I swear, if you find a cure, I'm never touching an elixir for the rest of my life. Years as a maddened animal scared me straight. Just to be sure, you aren't going to stab us in the back either?" Mosquito asked Acid Rain. "You gutted our previous teleporter in a fit of rage." No. The young woman shook her head, her eyes betraying her horror. That wasn't me. I won't hurt anyone, I swear." She sounded sincere, so Ryan gave her the benefit of the doubt. "Something has been bugging me," the courier said, seizing the opportunity to interrogate her. "In your insane state, you kept rambling about how I barred the gates, and that something called the Ultimate One wanted you to win." Helen crossed her arms, uncomfortable at reliving her days as a maidwoman. "Well, I don't remember everything. It's all a haze. But I think it's because of the portal inside you." "The portal?" Ryan frowned behind his mask. "Yeah." Acid Rain searched for the right words. "When I switch with my raindrops it's not instantaneous. It looks like it from the outside, but from my point of view, everything goes purple, and I move from one spot to another through a corridor. You enter the purple world when you teleport, using it as a shortcut through space." It explained why their powers could sense the other activating. They both shared a strong connection with the dimension fueling them. "When I'm in this place, I see a weird pyramid thing above us, watching." Helen took a deep breath. I hear voices too. I'm not sure if it's talking to me, or something else, but I hear people speaking. When I look at you in this state, I can see a pathway I can't access. A pathway that you close. If that makes sense. I see. Ryan crossed his arms. Thing is, I have been able to open a gate to the purple world in the past, but only with my power boosted. You could do that? Acid Rain's head perked up in hope. You could. You could go back in time with that place. I know you could. It's all of space and time, it all goes back to it. Saren gave Ryan a knowing look, and though he beamed with happiness, he was careful enough not to reveal the truth. Especially not now, when things were finally looking bright. I've lost my family because of a mistake, Helen said, joining her fingers and looking down. That's why I looked for a violet elixir. I could already summon the rain, but you drank a violet elixir, in spite of the risks? Ryan asked. Acid Rain shook her head, her face turning ghastly, her fingers shaking. I found one, but I thought I could give it to a friend. That maybe they would luck out. But Adam caught me and he took the violet elixir, and said. Her stare reminded him of a traumatized victim having a PTSD episode. He said that if I really wanted to go back, I should do it myself. So he opened a bottle and her voice died down her throat, her breathing shortening. And Ryan shivered as he listened to her tale, and suddenly realized that Hanny Fat Lecter's obsession with force-feeding him an elixir wasn't a one-time impulse. It was a habit. That murderous bastard shattered people into broken shells of their former selves, until they had no other option but to follow him. I doubt we can help your family, Helen, Ryan apologized, crushing her hopes. Even if he managed to access the purple world, according to Darkling, the ultimate one would preserve causality and avoid time paradoxes. But we're going to help you, at least. I swear it. Okay. The way she said it made Ryan feel sorry for Acid Rain, of all people. She gathered her breath, and managed to calm herself. Okay. Maybe you could ask the Auguste? Mosquito suggested. Did he rediscover an ember of humanity? I heard Mercury could raise the dead, and we made peace with them. He raises them as mindless zombies, you stupid jackass, Saren said, before returning to the pool game. She wasn't one for emotional moments. Anyone else wanna play? I'm on a roll right now. Sure, Mongrel said, before looking at the dead gremlins dangling from the ceiling. Also, why are there dead hanged animals above the table? They're our lucky charms, Saren said, as she sent an 8-ball rolling into a hole. Toasty chose that moment to roll into the room, avoiding a blood puddle and immediately rushing at Acid Rain's feet. Hey, Blondie, the toaster greeted Helen, as it put on the charm. Do you want me to toast your bread? The poor woman looked at the toaster in absolute confusion, and then at Ryan. Is this a prank? She asked. If you don't like your bread raw, I've got butter, Toasty said seductively. His game was atrocious, but then again, he was a toaster. Sweet, soft butter. How can you get butter when you don't have arms? Ryan pointed out the obvious. Hey, you've got enough chicks vying for you already, leave some for us, Toasty replied. When are you putting me inside that big hot mech in the garage? Then, I'll show you arms. Tomorrow, my friend. Tomorrow. Wyvern had destroyed robots and mechs before. But she had never fought a toaster. After briefing his mooks on his devilish plan, Ryan moved to the lower levels. Len had set up a modest genius workshop in one of the underground chambers close to the holographic dome. Ryan had disabled the cameras and microphones for her privacy, which Alchimo took as a sign he did dirty things with Len behind doors. If the courier could trust the screens on the walls and the information banks they showed, the room used to be an archive of some sort. A holographic projector at the chamber's center showed a map of planet Earth, with half a dozen glowing red points around Eurasia. Perhaps they indicated Mecron's remaining facilities. Ryan would have to track them down after settling things in New Rome. Hi, Shorty, he told Len, upon finding her working on the brain copying machine. She had repurposed a desk into an improvised workbench. "You look good." He had grown used to seeing dark circles around Len's eyes, but not today. She looked as well rested as Ryan himself, and her cheeks had regained some color. "Hi, Riri," she said with a warm, kind smile. "Yes, I feel good. Alchimo gave me pills, and they work much better than my previous antidepressants. I can think clearly even when I'm not using my power." Though Ryan still distrusted Alchimo, he had to admit the genius could do a great deal of good when he wanted to. If the courier learned how to reproduce his miracle drugs, he could provide Len with treatment across loops. In time, she might regain the same vivid, innocent energy of her teenage years. "So any progress on the machine?" Ryan asked, looking at this device with reverence. It had saved him from centuries of loneliness. Now we proved it works and Sishak won't follow us again. We can finally make long-term plans for the future. Especially since this loop would probably end with another firefight. "I still can't believe we just time-traveled," Len admitted. "When I looked at Sarah, and how she had never seen my sanctuary, I understood how you felt. People forgetting you over and over again. It must be maddening." "That was before," Ryan said, as he sat on the workbench. "Now we can bring more people into the loop. I have an arrogant young disciple I would love for you to meet." "There's a problem, Riri," Len said, biting her lower lip. "The machine can only send one brain map back in time at once. Maybe I can improve it and raise that number, but for now, we're limited to one person." "You then," Ryan said, quickly understanding the method's limits. "And we'll need to rebuild the machine and send you back each time in an unbroken chain. If it breaks once, you'll forget everything." "Unless we have a place where we can store the memories," Len confirmed with a nod. "We'll need Livia," Ryan said. The courier intended to talk to her so she could assist with the psychocure project, so he would kill two birds with one stone. "I thought you didn't trust her?" She followed through with her end of the bargain. Len took a deep breath. "I mean, she could have told her father to storm this place, but she didn't. Maybe I misjudged her. I don't want her to see the machine's blueprints, but we could cooperate. Do you have the resources to recreate the brain scanner at your base, Shorty?" Len's strained face told him otherwise. "Since Sishak corrupted the prototype, we'll need to create a new one from scratch." No, I'm sorry. We'll need better tech than I have. Vulcans, or less bunkers." Unfortunately, the courier couldn't conquer the bunker without help for now. After fighting the defenses, Ryan realized it would take an ungodly number of loops to take it over solo. He couldn't take it without casualties either, at least not until he perfected the process through constant repetitions. He could convince Vulcan or Dynamis to provide him with tech under the right circumstances, but Livia looked like the best option. If they could work out a deal, the Augusti Princess could provide an enormous amount of resources and serve as a backup. "I'll ask Livia." "What next afterward?" Len asked. Even if some of them help this time around, we're surrounded by psychos. Mosquito and Mongrel, they tried to abduct the children one loop ago. I wouldn't worry about the children. Considering they're protectors, I worry more about running out of mooks. I'm serious, Rere. It's hard to pretend nothing happened. Every time I see the Metagang's members, I'm tempted to shoot them. I was too, Ryan admitted, but I've come to realize that while there are monsters in their midst, some of them are victims of circumstances. I can't help but wonder what they will do with their lives, if we can cure them of their madness and addiction. They'll just fall back into their old habits, Len said cynically. Ryan wasn't so sure. Though it might be his inner optimist talking, he wanted to believe people like Mongrel or Acid Rain could turn their life around. He had the intuition Saren wouldn't start any trouble either, if she recovered a body of flesh and blood. His perfect run demanded he save those who deserved it. In any case, we'll focus on mastering this bunker's technology. Darkling kept pestering Alchimo about the portal, but the genius still struggled to overcome Mekran's firewalls. While the bunker's security systems didn't attack on sight anymore, the key, critical areas remained out of reach for now. And afterward, we'll deal with Dynamis. Len nodded, her face betraying a hint of anxiousness. We're raiding Lab 66 this loop. Yes. I already set things in motion to prepare the terrain. Whatever may wait for them inside Dynamis Fortress, they would soon learn it. Len, there's something I wish to talk about. She looked away. What Sishok saw in my mind, isn't it? Yes. Len. Ryan gathered his breath. I love you. There, he said it. I've loved many people. So many, you can't count them all. I've loved T, and Jasmine, and I admit I have a huge crush on Wardrobe. God damn it, why was she already taken? But out of all these relationships, ours always had a special place in my heart. I hoped we could settle down somewhere. Build a house. Make children. You know, the old dream. Now that you can remember, I have to know if you feel the same. He had waited so long to get it off his chest. Len's arms remained crossed, and tightened further. She kept looking away from him, avoiding his gaze. Perhaps she wanted to spare him the sadness in her own eyes, or her emotions overwhelmed her. Len struggled to find her words, and Ryan patiently waited for her to do so. I guess after all we went through together, it can't ever go away. But, such a small word, and yet one that crushed so many dreams. But so much happened, Ryan, she said with a deep, sad sigh. So much. I wish we could go back to simpler times, but we can't, even with your power. You're my best friend, Rary, and I don't want you to go away. But I don't feel I'm ready for us to become more than that. Perhaps never. Ryan listened in silence, having expected something like this. Len finally looked into his eyes, and he could see she was terrified of his reaction. I'm sorry, Rary. No, it's okay, Ryan reassured her with dignity, and he meant it. I had centuries to process these feelings and prepare myself. I understand, Shorty. The courier didn't like it, but he understood. He had clung to an idea of the past for so long, he couldn't keep looking back. Things happened. Things changed. He had to accept them, and move on. Len still had her own issues, and couldn't give him the emotional intimacy he yearned for. She already wanted him in her life against all odds, and he couldn't feel entitled to more. I will give you your space, he said. Frankly, I'm just happy we can become friends again, and stay that way. All Ryan ever asked for, was for someone to remember him. He couldn't ask for more of Len, now that she fulfilled his dearest wish. Perhaps I was wrong. I don't think we're best friends. It seems not strong enough a term. Len gave him a bright, warm smile. We're family, Rary. Yes, they were family. Perhaps not the one Ryan had hoped for, but a family all the same. And he was fine with it. Chapter 79 April 2017, France, village of La Turbie. It was a sunny day in Monaco. Flowers were blooming, birds were singing, and Simon rolled a boulder in hell. How many times had Ryan looked at Monaco from this promontory? He had spent 1 year's worth of loops trying to figure out this place's rules, and today would just be another attempt. It took him a while, but he had found an old, pre-war UAV drone in an abandoned military base near Isters. A stealth, tactical reconnaissance device which Dassault built for the French Air Force. Ryan had modified it into a purple-painted quadcopter, and outfitted it with a submachine gun. Controlling the device with a remote control, the courier received a constant video feed as he directed the drone towards Monaco. His quadcopter flew through empty streets, and broke through windows to enter deserted houses. All buildings looked the same from the inside. The whole city was a prop. At least Ryan now confirmed the teleportation effect didn't apply to machines, once the drone passed the 2-hour time limit. The casino's propaganda about fighting back Mekran was just as baseless as its tales of Enduran invasions. As the sun fell behind the horizon, Ryan directed the drone to the Monte Carlo casino. The quadcopter moved inside after blasting the doors with the submachine gun, and no clown came to stop it. The real Monte Carlo casino looked similar to the hellish dimension Ryan had spent a lifetime trapped inside, but it was neither infinite nor abnormal. The rooms were in their place, and the drone couldn't find anyone within its walls. When the drone prepared to leave the casino to resupply, the doors had repaired themselves. Ryan had the machine blast them again, fly through, and then turn around again. The doors had recovered the second they had been left out of sight. Well, time to bring out the big guns then. Ryan spent 3 months' worth of loops mapping out the casino and its surroundings with the drone, down to the sewers. In the end, he had to face the obvious. He couldn't find any entrance into the pocket dimension. An invitation-only kind of place, eh? Ryan said, as he put on sunglasses. Having taken offense at the situation, he had strapped a small nuke to his drone. Thank the French for their pre-war nuclear arsenal. You don't say no to me. Sitting on a long chair on the coast of Cap Ferrat, almost 15 kilometers from Monaco, Ryan directed the drone to the Monte Carlo with his remote control. He had to repurpose a local radio station to control his toy from so far away, but his work would pay dividends. After the shrimp, the courier said while pressing the big red button, the mushrooms. The video feed stopped functioning, as a bright sphere of light consumed Monaco. Everything within Ryan's line of sight caught fire, from forests to the ruins of French ports along the Mediterranean coast. Colossal waves rose around the detonation point, and spread for miles. The ground trembled as far as Cap Ferrat, a massive fire mushroom rising up in the skies. Ryan watched the cursed microstate go down in flames with a deep sense of satisfaction. At least, until the shock wave reached him and a powerful gust tossed his sunglasses off his face. Independence for Andorra. The courier shouted in the microstate's direction, as the mushroom cloud slowly died out. A few hours later, Ryan strode through the burning ruins of Monaco in a reinforced hazmat suit, braving the firestorms, the ashes, and the irradiated dust falling from the skies. Every building had collapsed from the blast, and the roads were blocked by debris. The courier almost considered this experience a hiking trip. "I will be the very best," Ryan hummed to himself, as he reached the blast epicenter. Of the Monte Carlo casino, only a crater remained. Whatever force allowed the place to rebuild itself, it couldn't undo such devastation. Like no one ever was. A flash of yellow and violet swallowed him whole, followed by the sight of a familiar marble hallway. Damn it. When he woke up again on the Tate de Chen promontory on April 1st, Ryan let out a scream of frustration. Even nuking the whole place couldn't dispel the effect. He should have expected something like this. While the real Monte Carlo served as the phenomenon's anchor on Earth, the true maze existed in a separate reality. As far as Ryan could tell, the mysterious controller, Gene Stapany, lived inside his pocket dimension. Or most probably, he had become the maze. Ryan sighed, sat on the promontory's edge, and considered what he had learned over his various experiments. The effect activated whenever someone crossed into Monaco's boundaries, as described by international law. This included the airspace, but not the territorial waters. Ryan assumed it had something to do with the old Franco-Monegasque treaties, with Gene Stapany's power unable to recognize the waters as fully Monaco's. A victim was teleported inside the maze if they approached the Monte Carlo, or stayed more than 2 hours inside the city's limits. If they had crossed the frontier and left, they would be trapped the moment they fell asleep. It didn't matter if they had stayed in Monaco for less than a minute, or spent 3 days fleeing across Europe before falling asleep from exhaustion. Ryan had checked both possibilities, to his dismay. Once you entered Monaco, it never let you go. Ever. The effect also applied to animals, except unlike humans, they were immediately teleported to the maze's kitchens instead of the relatively safe marble hallway. Ryan had sent countless puppies to their death over the course of his research, and didn't regret any of it. He was, after all, a cat person. At one point, he had even strapped the same nuke to a lamb, wiring it to detonate inside the pocket dimension. Since the sacrificial animal had teleported inside the kitchen, the resulting explosion spared Sweetstown and blasted a large part of the maze to Kingdom Come. Ryan had personally entered the pocket dimension afterward to observe the results. The damage lasted for 24 hours, until new rooms replaced the destroyed ones. Since the teleportation always involved a flash of violet and yellow light, Ryan suspected the controller was a psycho associated with these colors. It would explain the space-time anomaly and all the weird, conceptual rules. This meant only a powerful yellow or violet could permanently destroy the maze, if at all. So far, Ryan hadn't located anyone capable of such a feat. Do I truly need to destroy this place though? Ryan pondered out loud, as he observed Monaco from afar. The city was mocking him with its very existence. I mean, it's static and doesn't spread. A fence would keep it contained, at least until I find a way to terminate it. His perfect run demanded that he free the people trapped inside Monaco, first and foremost. According to his research, he could remain outside Monaco until April 28, after which Martine would die in a shrimp supply run gone wrong. The lights would die out, and the clowns would tear her apart before Simon could rescue her. Ryan had to find an exit within that time span, but where? This place didn't have a door in or out, and nobody could interact with the outside world once trapped inside. No one but Ryan himself. I am an exit, the courier realized. From what he understood of his power, the courier existed in two places at once, some kind of dimension beyond space and time, an Earth. The connection remained even within Monaco, though whatever power ruled the maze prevented his two selves from fusing. It didn't cancel the convergence entirely, it simply pushed back. Thus, while the pocket dimension could act as a barrier between its prisoners and the universe outside, it wasn't an inviolate frontier. If Ryan could push the underlying principle of his power to the limit, maybe he could overcome it. An idea crossed his mind. 5 years. It took Ryan 5 years worth of loops to master particle physics, find a genius capable of helping him with his problem, and raid enough laboratories to gather the equipment he needed. He had to travel all the way to Switzerland and back, to scavenge parts of CERN's unfinished Hadron Collider. And now, on this sunny day of April 27th, Ryan stood atop the promontory dressed for war. He had decided to wear something nice for this historical day. A purple shirt and blue pants, black gloves, and boots, and most importantly, a classic trench coat. He kept an MP3 device around his belt, alongside a Japanese katana he borrowed from a Swiss raider. Since the clowns shrugged off most firearms, he would make sushi out of them. Most importantly, the courier had brought with him two cube-shaped devices 40 centimeters in diameter. These steel-plated machines each had a hand-sized hole on one side, the mouth of a particle collider, and a small control panel on the other. The resonators. These nuclear-powered devices, through a science Ryan himself barely understood, should create a convergence similar to the courier's own power. Particles would travel from one cube to the other, forcing a path through dimensions. Maybe he could use the technology to build an interdimensional radio one day. That would be funny. Leaving one on the Tate de Cheng promontory and wiring it to activate within 2 hours, Ryan put the other in a travel bag and drove down towards Monaco with his trusty motorcycle. He crossed the microstate's official frontier, ignoring the anti-Andorran propaganda signs on his way to Monte Carlo. Ryan stopped in front of the casino, stepped away from his vehicle, and moved towards the doors with confidence. The plaza vanished in a flash of yellow and violet light. Ryan had lost count of how many times he had lived through this moment, but hopefully, this would be the last. He took a deep breath, basking in the conditioned air flowing through this dreadful prison, and moved to tear it apart. "Hello, dear guest." A gold-faced clown immediately welcomed the intruder, as he walked out of the marble hallway and into the main lobby. "Welcome to Monaco. The greatest sea." Ryan casually beheaded him with his katana, the creature's warm blood spraying the carpet. The courier didn't even wait for the head to hit the floor, as he moved towards the elevator. Half a dozen clowns emerged from behind the lobby's marble pillars, carrying silver plates, refreshments, and appetizers. "Dear guest, We must warn you that violence is forbidden during opening hours. One of them addressed Ryan with an obsequious tone. If you insist on misbehaving, we will have to show you the door. The courier called the elevator, and hit the 4th floor button. Pick the place, Ryan told the clowns, as the doors closed behind him. It's where you will die. The monsters kept grinning, but behind the empty smiles, there were knives. A few minutes later, Ryan had reached Sweetstown. The sight of the long hallway leading into the hotel suites almost made Ryan feel nostalgic. Almost. He walked towards room 34, and knocked on the metal door. "Simon!" he shouted, "Simon! I have a hamburger, and I'm not afraid to use it." The door immediately opened, and a shotgun raised at Ryan's face. Simon was outfitted for combat, his leather armor still white with the alien blood of murdered clowns. "Who the hell are you?" "Français parle anglais," Ryan replied in French. "Le chouest dans la garage." Simon froze for a split second, before asking with skepticism, "Illinois n'est pas couru assez vite?" "Je l'ai laissé en Alsace," Ryan replied. The sheriff lowered his weapon, astonished. "How do you know that password, Riddle?" "You told me," the courier almost blurted out. "A former friend of yours in the French Foreign Legion," Ryan lied for simplicity's sake. "I came to save you. According to my timing, everyone should be in their respective rooms right now." "How do you know that? Is this a commando operation? I thought the French government collapsed." "That's what we make them think," Ryan whispered ominously before moving inside the suite. Simon was too confused to protest, as the courier quickly moved in front of his tunnel. Ryan opened his bag, brought out the resonator, and placed it in front of the hole Simon had spent his life digging. Technically, the device would have worked anywhere inside the pocket dimension, but the courier thought this particular location was poetically appropriate. "You have a way out?" Simon asked with a tone Ryan never heard him use before. The emotion in the old man's voice was one he had given up on a long time ago. "Hope." And as Ryan typed on the resonator's control panel and activated the device, he prayed not to disappoint it. Light built up inside the cube's hole, projecting a stream of light into the tunnel. Space itself warped around this energy stream, warping Simon's hole into a shining hallway. Tension rose in the air, as if an evil force suddenly took notice of these events. Ryan took this as a good sign. After pulsating and twisting for half a minute, the hallway of light seemed to stabilize around the particle stream. Though he couldn't see anything beyond the threshold, the courier sensed a faint, pleasant gust brush against his face. "Wind. Is that?" Simon removed his helmet, unable to trust his own senses. His eyes had widened, and tears of relief formed at the edge of them. "Fresh air." Ryan activated his power, and opposing force pushing back. And yet Monaco turned purple. The resonators had breached the pocket dimension. "Who are you?" Simon asked when time resumed, unable to take his eyes off the portal. "Who are you?" "Quick, Ryan, think of a clever superhero name." "I'm Quicksave," Ryan declared confidently. "The boulder who rolls." Damn, that sounded way better in his mind. "Dear guess." A horribly familiar voice echoed through the floor's loudspeakers, a promise of deadly retaliation. "We regretfully inform you that due to the current Andorran invasion threatening our border, the Monte Carlo will permanently close until further notice." Far from professional, the voice sounded downright passive-aggressive this time around. "Please exit the suites, so our beloved staff can help you check out." Click. The sound of countless doors opening caused Ryan's heart to skip a beat, as he rushed outside Simon's home. All the suite's doors had snapped open, people looking through their thresholds in confusion. Ryan recognized so many faces, from Martine, to Jean, and Jeff, and Sally. The illusion of safety had been stripped away from them, and the lights started going out. Monaco wouldn't let them escape without a fight. Ryan looked for what remained inside his bag, a metal mask with two rounded glasses for eyes, custom-made for the occasion. "Game on, Pogo," the courier said, as he put on the mask and activated the night vision mode. "Simon, evacuate everyone through the portal. I'll take care of the comedy rejects downstairs." "Alone?" The gunman protested, cocking his shotgun. "You're mad, I'm coming with you." "No, Simon," Ryan said, as he moved towards the elevator with only his katana for a weapon. He would have blown it up if he didn't know the place could repair itself. "You can't fathom how long I've rehearsed this one-man show." As the elevator climbed down the floors towards the final showdown, the courier activated his MP3 and put on a cheerful song. "Nobody But Me." Ryan hummed to himself, as the elevator's doors opened. He disliked that show, but it had an awesome intro. The courier entered the lobby, and faced an army of clowns. Hundreds of them had crawled out of the shadows, and into the casino's main lobby, all carrying napkins around their neck. Ryan could scarcely see the giant roulette in the middle of the room, and the ceiling's candelabras had all been extinguished. The Monte Carlo staff had grabbed all the weapons they could find. Silver cutlery, golf clubs, sushi knives, and even a few nightsticks. Their metallic masks kept smiling, though their grins had turned downright vicious. And the only person standing between them and Sweetstown was one handsome courier. "Monaco." Ryan raised his katana, and uttered his war cry. "Monaco isn't a real country." The smiling horde charged at him like a screaming chorus. What followed was a whirlwind of blood and fury, as Ryan cut through the creatures like butter. His sword's edge disavowed 5 clowns in a single strike, thick white blood flowing from their wounds like a wine waterfall. 2 monsters attempted to shank him, one with a knife, the other with a fork. He threw one into the other, impaling the 2 in a single strike and causing them to drop their weapons. When a clown attempted to bypass him and reach the elevator, Ryan grabbed the knife and threw it behind him. The projectile hit the back of his target's head, killing him instantly. "The armies of Andorra will fail." A frenzied voice shouted through the loudspeakers, as a berserk Ryan killed clowns left and right. "Pledge your life to Monaco. Glory to Gene Stefani. The Monte Carlo shall stand forever. Where are my winnings?" Ryan snarled as he smashed a clown's head against the floor, his face smearing the giant roulette below their feet. "What do I win?" He froze time in quick succession to dodge 2 knife strikes, only to notice something coming from his left when the clock resumed tickling. One platinum-faced clown had thrown a silver plate at the courier like a frisbee, with enough force to turn it into a deadly weapon. Ryan barely had the time to blink, before the projectile hit his neck and sliced it in half. Time and again. The second time around, Ryan dodged the plate, grabbed it in midair, and threw it back at the center. The improvised frisbee snapped the monster's skull open. Ryan parried a golf club swing, then another swing. His foe's short game was good, but the courier cut his hands off with a stroke of his own. He leaped around, dodging strikes and swings, countering, killing, swirling. His sword was one with his body, his focus unparalleled. 3 clowns tackled him by surprise and threw him to the ground, as a 4th crushed his head with a giant token. 3 clowns fell with one swing, and the 4th's legs were sliced clean. His own token crushed him, and Ryan stomped on the body. Dozens he had slain, and more followed. A lifetime of suffering he avenged. Backs were smashed against pillars, shrimp spores fed down a throat. Wine bottles flew, and plates shattered. His fury couldn't be quenched. The bloody floor turned slippery, and yet Ryan kept going with a grin. Each life he took was a pleasure greater than sex. Each strike carried the weight of a century of pain, the exaltation of a performance rehearsed for years. The hyenas that hounded him for decades fell like flies before his blade, and he couldn't put into words how amazing it felt. He killed many clowns, but more took their place. An endless tide of death, but he would cut them down all the same. Tonight, we have the pleasure of introducing veteran entertainers from the International Circus Festival of Monte Carlo. The loudspeaker's voice said with fear, as its mooks perished. "Everyone, please applaud." The acrobats. 4 shadows leaped amidst the carnage, clown faces atop black bodysuits. They wielded swords, and into the fray they charged. They threw shurikens at Ryan's face, and with his blade he parried them. Swords clashed, and on one he was impaled. A sword swing he dodged, and a ninja he slew. Time froze and began again. He raged and cursed as he parried, dodged, and struggled. They pushed him back against the wall. And his blood they shed. And Ryan tried again. Again, and again. And again. Their blades clashed in a storm of steel, but Ryan was pushing them back, and the clowns no longer grinned. Each run made him a little faster, a little deadlier. Each sneak attack he dodged, each strike he countered. Each opportunity he exploited. None could harm him, but every one of his strikes landed a kill. No breath was wasted, no step was for nothing. He stole a second sword, for double the pain. It's impossible. Nobody ever expects the clown ninjas. The loudspeaker's voice screamed in rage, and the courier laughed. More minibuses came, firecrackers and magicians, strongmen and ringmasters. All of them Ryan faced, and none lived to tell the tale. All his foes fell, until only one remained. His rounded hat Ryan coveted, and he would not be denied. Against the statue of Jean Stephanie the clown was pushed, and under which he was crushed. The massacre finished, the song ended. Ryan gathered his breath, a hill of corpses before him, and frightened clowns behind. Well. Ryan looked over his shoulder at his future victims, drenched in white blood. None of it was his own. Up for more? The clowns had stopped smiling, and ran away screaming. With a blissful smile, Ryan dropped his swords, grabbed his last victim's rounded hat, and put it on his head over his mask. What a good souvenir it would make. The courier returned to Sweetstown, finding it almost empty. Only Simon remained, keeping watch over the portal with his shotgun raised. "You could have left some for me," he said while glancing at the courier's bloody clothes. "I was about to go downstairs and help. You know that the whole point of last stands is that you're not expected to survive them?" Ryan asked rhetorically. "Why didn't you leave already?" "You asked me to evacuate everyone," the man replied. "You're part of everyone." "So nice." Ryan activated a code on the resonator's control panel, triggering the self-destruct sequence to make sure the clowns wouldn't follow them outside. Explosion in 5 minutes, a digital voice came out of the device. "How big?" Simon asked, quickly searching below his bar counter for his last belongings. "Nuclear," Ryan replied, as he grabbed his travel bag. As expected, Simon brought a pile of books as souvenirs, with a familiar one at the top. "The Myth of Sisyphus." "How did you know?" the old sheriff asked, suspicious. Ryan chuckled, as they walked into the light. "Intuition. Farewell, Monaco. You won't be missed. Are you sure you don't want to stay?" "At the wheel of an old Renault Megane too," Ryan replied with a negative. "There's someone I've got to find," he told Martine and Simon, as the two stood outside his window. "No offense, but that side quest lasted long enough already." "I'm not familiar with the term," Martine said, while Simon shrugged. "We owe you our lives. Whoever you are, you'll always be welcome among us. Whoever you are." Ryan glanced through his car's window, and at the 40 men and women he just saved today. The group had established a makeshift camp atop the Tate de Chene promontory, celebrating their freedom around a campfire. Monaco remained in the distance, a prison without captives. It had been 3 days since the jailbreak, and nobody had been yanked back to the pocket dimension, even when they slept. Either the forceful escape had broken the pocket dimension's power over its captives, or they would have to cross its frontier again like anyone else. No one was stupid enough to go back there. From his point of view, he had lived with these people for over a century. He had learned all of their secrets, helped them through the darkest times, seen them react to all possible circumstances. He knew Simon's real name, the one he abandoned when he joined the French Foreign Legion. He knew what happened to his sons, the horrible past he tried to leave behind, and even the books he wanted to read, but never got around to. He knew Martine's hometown, the name she wanted to give her future children, her favorite movie, the one she loathed most, that she had always wanted to become a nurse but never could. He knew her deepest fears and greatest triumphs. And they had just learned his name. He knew these people better than they knew themselves, but he remained a stranger to them. "Maybe we'll keep in touch," Ryan said, though he didn't really believe it. You know how to contact me. If you need a favor, you just have to call." The blonde woman smiled warmly at him, though there was a sadness to her gaze. She knew they were unlikely to meet again. Simon watched as Martine rejoined the other survivors, remaining with Ryan a little longer. "Have we met before?" he asked Ryan. "I can tell you know me, but I don't remember you. Without false modesty, I'm unforgettable." "Yeah, you sure know how to make an introduction, freeing me from 12 years of captivity. Now, what's your secret?" "Everything that happened so far seems a bit too convenient." "I'm immortal," Ryan confessed with a sigh, "but don't tell anyone." Simon examined the time traveler for a moment, before offering him an old, dusty book. "Here. Take this." Ryan expected a copy of The Myth of Sisyphus, but it was another book entirely. "Thus Spoke Zarathustra, a book for all and none," the courier read the cover's title. "By Friedrich Nietzsche. There's a concept inside, the eternal recurrence, that I think you'll like." Ryan looked into the older man's wise, knowing gaze. "Thanks," the courier said, before putting the book at the car's back. "What will you do now?" "Martine and the others will probably move west towards greener pastures, but I'll stay here. My life is almost over, so I figure someone has to watch over this place. Put fences all around this giant death trap, and make sure nobody wanders inside. Nobody ain't going past me, I can tell you. I've got experience with border duties." Ryan didn't doubt that. "Well, if anybody wonders where they shouldn't, give me a call." "Sure, Petit Riddle," Simon said, before patting the courier's shoulder. "Don't break your back climbing the hill." Ryan looked at Simon's book, and then at its previous owner as he joined the Monaco survivors. The courier watched the bashful smiles on their face, the happy glances they sent one another. They had gone through hell, and made it out. They would rebuild their lives, and begin again. This was the perfect ending, for everyone. Everyone but Ryan. The courier froze time, and let it last more than 10 seconds. 2 periods converged, a flash of violet light swallowing the courier whole. He lived through everything in the span of a second. This cursed century spent trapped in Monaco, and the shorter stays afterward. His years of research, all the pain, all the joy, and all the sorrow. All these moments that could have been, but that only Ryan remembered. He took all his memories into himself, and they would live on through him. Time resumed abruptly, the past set in stone, and the save point moved into the present. His perfect run complete, Ryan drove into the sunset and didn't look back. Chapter 80. He found Livia standing on the piers, facing the sea with a terrible look on her face. Ryan parked his not-so-suspicious black minivan near the old harbor, and quickly looked around for any Killer 7 member. If Livia had brought bodyguards, they hid well. The courier suspected Mortimer lingered nearby, buried below ground. "Don't tell me you came on foot," the courier told the Mafia princess, as he joined her in his full presidential costume. "We're a long way from Mount Augustus. But we're close to Optimate's tower," Livia replied with a sad smile. Not only did she look grim with the black circles around her eyes, but she also dressed the part. Her dark coat and austere clothes reminded Ryan of a young widow. "And I could only lose Matthias this way." So Mr. See-Through stalked her too? The glass manipulator had made increasingly frequent forays into Rust Town lately, though he never stayed long due to the land's interferences. Livia examined Ryan's new costume from head to toe. "I love the suit," she said, though she frowned at the hole in his bowler hat. "Did someone attack you?" "I had to put down a robot rebellion." Ryan shrugged. "I have a backup bowler hat in my car, but I'll wait for it tomorrow before putting it on. I only wear that one for war." She chuckled, though her heart wasn't in it. The courier glanced at Augustus' daughter, noticing the red marks near her eyelids. She had wiped off tears not so long ago. "He told you, didn't he?" Ryan guessed. "Kitten. He told you the truth, about how he felt." Her face strained, telling him he had hit the mark. "Can't we sit for a while, Ryan?" "Sure." They sat along the pier's edge, their feet dangling above the sea. Ryan said nothing, knowing Augustus Air wanted an ear to listen to. One that wasn't part of the family. Not even for Tuna. Livia put her hands on her lap, facing the distant sun. A faint breeze flowed from the west onto her face. She didn't say a word for a while, as she tried to express her feelings into words. I went straight to Dynamis. Something I never dared to do, because it increases tensions between my family and the Manitas and my predictions. If I didn't know this wouldn't matter in the long term, I would never have dared. Story of my life, Ryan replied. I refused to leave until Felix would talk to me, Livia continued her tale. My bodyguards and the security were within minutes of starting a firefight when he finally came down. He wasn't happy that I forced his hand, but he agreed to sit down and have a real talk. Ryan listened in respectful silence. I can see up to 6 futures at once, and I can switch them. My ability is always on, and sometimes it reacts to my emotional state. It shows me options based on what I want. Livia looked away, her eyes wandering to Dynamis and Illinois Meteor's Twin Towers. I couldn't convince Felix to get back together with me willingly in any alternate world I saw. There were many where I could force him, yes. But none where he would return out of his own free will. She glanced back at the calm, peaceful sea, and the shadow of Ischia Island in the distance. It's not that we're over, Ryan. There was nothing between us in the first place. It was just decorum, and my own feelings blinding me to the truth. Whatever bond we shared, it's gone, and I can't get it back. I'm sorry, Ryan said with a sigh. I know it sounds cliché, but I understand. You've been there too. She looked at the courier sorrowfully. I can feel it in your voice. Yeah. Ryan slowly removed his mask and hat, putting them at his side. The warm breeze on his face felt good. I've spent centuries looking for Len, because I loved her. And now that she remembers, while we still share a close bond, the intimacy we had is gone. What happened? Her father happened, Ryan replied. Just like Livia's ruined every chance she might have had with Felix. Nostalgia led me to New Rome. I longed for a simpler past, and... He took a deep breath. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to have a friend back. But it's not the ending I'd hoped for. Livia gave him a glance full of compassion. Love is a sweet poison, isn't it? I don't regret tasting it though, Ryan replied with a genuine smile. All I wished for was someone to remember me. Someone with whom I could share my joys and burdens. Shorty agreed to help me carry some of the load, and I'm fine with that. Better than fine. Why are you still in New Rome, Ryan? She asked him. You came to this city to reconnect with your friend, and you did. Adam perished, and you could bury the bunker for good. Leave all of this mess behind. It wouldn't be the best ending, princess. It would be a good one. For you, at least. Would it be good for Felix? For Jamie, for Jasmine, for Yuki? Ryan marked a short pause. For you. The heiress looked somewhat embarrassed. Don't worry about me, Ryan, she said, I will make things right. A blatant lie. He could see it in her eyes. Livia expected to face more trouble down the line, and to carry the burden alone. Well, you're part of my Christmas list whether you like it or not, Ryan joked. And I'll ask you the same question. Why are you still in New Rome? Same reason as you, Livia replied, her eyes focusing on Ischia Island. Too many lives depend on it. If I leave, the throne will probably go to Bacchus or Mars, and nothing will change. It will just be more of the same. How far can you see into a simulation? Livia joined her hands, as if hesitating to reveal that secret. Eventually, she did though. A month or so if I truly focus. The predictions get increasingly unreliable the farther into the future I look. Her expression transformed into a grim scowl. Not far enough that I could learn about my father's cancer before it was too late. So she had seen how the world would turn out in the future. While the butterfly effect probably whisked possibilities away, seeing a world with Bacchus in charge of the Augusti must have scared her straight. Can I confess something, Ryan? You don't have to ask. I won't judge you. Livia's fingers fidgeted, as she mustered her courage. He could tell that she was about to admit something she never dared to confess to anyone else before. I don't really feel comfortable around others. Even Fortuna, or my family. I love them but... How to explain? You know them, but they don't know you, Ryan guessed her problem. She confirmed with a slow nod. You have the same problem? I lived lifetimes with some people across loops, only for them to barely know my name in the last one. I can process the realities I see at an accelerated rate, and I can't turn my power off. I've seen all the ways my loved ones can react to a stimulus, what they plan to do. I know everything about them, but I feel like an outside observer in my own life. The events I see happen to other MES. I didn't live these moments, I only watched them. Their respective powers built walls with others. Is that why you're telling me this? Ryan asked. Because you can't watch me, that our moments feel genuine. She chuckled. It plays into it, I believe. I feel the same, Ryan admitted. Honestly, I kinda hated you at first. I've grown so used to controlling every aspect of a loop, that a foreign force like you messing up with my plans. It felt maddening. But, well, I had forgotten that I liked surprises. It felt nice to talk with someone who understood the loneliness Ryan had suffered through all these years. While their powers might have been wildly different, they did face similar problems. Olivia looked at him with an amused smile. If I piggyback on your power as you suggested in your messages, you will have even less mastery over what happens. Yes, but you said it yourself. Neither of us is getting what we want without cooperating with the other. The courier crossed his arms. So, if we gave you a map of your memories and a backup of Len's, would you go along with it? Olivia's smile turned into a scowl. I don't think that will work, Ryan. I know myself. I will never accept having my thoughts overwritten voluntarily, especially not by Dynamismate Tech. From my old self's point of view, I can only rely on notes rather than personal experience. I will expect foul play. Can't you write a 15-page-long warning you won't read anyway, like search engines? I'm more likely to assume someone tampered with my notes. I will find it more likely that you are a manipulative blue capable of interfering with my ability. I'm already very wary of people like Bacchus. Olivia considered the matter thoughtfully. How much does the underdiver trust you? I see where this is going, Ryan said. We send your consciousness back in time, you keep a copy of Shorty's memories, and then I convince her past self to have her own overwritten. Would she accept? You knew each other for years, while we met days ago. She's more likely to go along with this plan than my other self. I don't know. Hopefully, Len would figure out a way to send more than one consciousness back in time and they wouldn't have to find out. I'll ask her permission first. It would feel a bit manipulative otherwise. You use your foreknowledge to get others to move the way you want to all the time, Olivia argued. Len was a special case. We'll see with her. What about the other thing? Help you find a cure for the psycho condition? The Oracle seemed a lot less enthusiastic about that part. Ryan, these people tried to blow us all back to the Stone Age. The ones who wanted to are gone, and the rest. Ryan's thoughts turned to Acid Rain, Mongrel, Frank, even Saren. All these people were victims of their own powers. The rest deserve a second chance. And besides the meta, how many psychos were people who made a costly mistake, or victims of circumstances? Bloodstream, Gene Stapany, Adam, and their kind had colored his view of psychos. But now that he had seen the other side of the fence, Ryan couldn't call a world where Acid Rain would remain a demented killer a perfect run. I gave them hope, Olivia, the courier declared. I don't want to disappoint it. You will take it away when you turn back time again, Olivia pointed out. I will make curing them part of my final loop, Ryan argued back. I will perfect the process through multiple loops, and make sure they get a better ending. Maybe they won't remember my promise, but I will. Olivia hesitated for a full minute, joining her hands as she considered the proposal. If Ryan wasn't mistaken, she used her sight to try to see the possible consequences, and it seemed to mollify her resistance somewhat. "All right," she said. "But in return, I asked for two things. First, you will involve me in every step of the way. I don't want to help create something I might regret." "That's fair." "And second," her expression turned playful, "why do they keep calling you Mr. President?" Ryan couldn't help but chuckle. "You want me to declassify that secret?" "I'm curious," she admitted. "I'm sure there's an interesting anecdote behind it." Ryan explained to Livia the details of his coup d'etat, and her lips transformed into a grin. "You force them to sing the Star-Spangled Banner every morning. Frank is a surprisingly good singer, but Mosquito—" Ryan shuddered, the infernal buzzing noise echoing in his mind. "If you didn't want to slap him before he sings, you will afterward." "I wish I could do silly things like that," Livia admitted. "Everyone around me walks on eggshells." "Can't you force them to amuse you, jester style?" Ryan asked. "What's the point of having authority if you can't abuse it now and then?" "They fear displeasing me, but they dread my father's attention even more," Livia replied. "Although I admit Fortuna and I had some interesting adventures when we were younger." "Like what?" "We made wishes upon a star, and Fortuna asked for the star itself," Livia chuckled. "A small meteorite fell in the garden. My father was livid." "Her power is busted," Ryan complained. "I know," Livia answered with a knowing smile, albeit somewhat nostalgic. "Things were so much easier when we were children." Ryan glanced at Ischia Island in the distance. "Before your parents started grooming you to take over?" Livia answered with a sharp nod. "I would appreciate it if you destroyed that island on your way out of New Rome. Once the Bliss Factory goes down, I can finally start changing things for the better. Maybe even keep Narcinia away from Bacchus, if I play my cards right. You understand she will always remain the sticking point with the carnival?" Ryan pointed out the obvious. "And Bacchus is only part of the problem. Mars and Venus also push her into making more bliss against her will." "Mars and Venus, I can manage," Livia explained. "They're followers, so to say. Mars in particular chose to become my father's subordinate early and never wavered in his loyalty. He will only take responsibility for the family's empire if it is thrust upon his shoulders. If I inherit, these two will do as I say. Even leave Narcinia and Fortuna alone to do as they wish. They won't like it, mind you. But they will obey." "But not Bacchus?" Livia shook her head. "His obsession with bliss borders on religious zealotry. He believes he can contact God with that substance, and it trumps all other concerns. Not a god. An ultimate one." "Even then," Ryan said, "if you really want to spare your family from a deadly confrontation with Hargraves, we'll have to find a way to exfiltrate Narcinia from your father's grasp." Livia winced. "I'm seeing Hargraves in my vision lately. Sunshine." "Already? Where?" "Rust Town," she admitted. "I believe he intends to attack you, and the odds increase with time. But the only reason Hargraves would appear so soon, would be if he knew about the bunker. So that's why his flight was so active lately," Ryan muttered out loud. "How? Did Ryan's presence among the metagang cause Shroud to pay more attention to Rust Town? Or did the glass manipulator manage to interrogate former thrills of Sishak with the necessary knowledge to piece it together? Perhaps he hadn't done so yet, but would in the following days. How long until the sunset? It is too early to tell yet, especially since you can make my prophecies wrong." Livia bit her lower lip. "Something else has been blurring my visions lately. Of course. One of the plush eyes had breached containment and escaped the junkyard. If it was anything like with a Jean Henry, the creature would probably pollute her future sight. I see Dynamis attacking Rust Town too," Livia continued. "Enrique leads them in most possibilities, but others, his elder brother takes the lead. If he does come, the city burns not long after. The flames of war consume everything. So Ryan's backup plan of abandoning the surface and bunkering down the way Honey Fat Lecter did looked doomed to fail. He had to go on the offensive. Well, I have a plan to take care of Dynamis, and secure Vulcan's help on the same occasion." "Vulcan?" Livia raised an eyebrow, smirking. Why choose a road so complicated? If you needed her help, you could have asked me. Nah, I know Vulcan. If you forced her to help, she would have ratted us out to Augustus out of petty revenge. If anything, Jasmine's irritability was one of the things Ryan found cute about her. She will only help reliably if someone goes along with her wishes first. Livia immediately picked on the implications. The two of you were close. Ryan avoided her gaze, staring at the sea. He still felt sore about losing Jasmine, his Jasmine. Yeah, we were. But now she's gone for good. Now that you can safeguard memories, why not repeat the loop where you formed a relationship? Livia suggested. Then you send her memories back. Ryan sighed. He had considered something like that, before deciding against it. That kind of thinking led down the rabbit hole. Besides the fact she made me promise not to replace her, I cannot control your actions, so a perfect repeat is now beyond my reach. If I tried to recreate my Jasmine through various loops, I would probably obsess over every detail, and reboot if I find the result lacking. I'm afraid I'll start caring more about my idea of Jasmine, rather than the person. Much like how he had obsessed over Len, and what she represented to him. I see. Livia looked torn about Ryan's choice, but appeared to respect it. Why do you need her? We're in the process of figuring out how Mekran could enhance his lieutenant's powers. If I combine his tech with Jasmine's, you could boost your power, and perhaps bring more people across time. He could tell that the possibility greatly interested Livia. How will you proceed? Well, I'll go full supervillain, take over Dynamis Star Studios, and live stream Hector Manada's crimes for the world to see. Ryan explained his evil plan. I'll also chew the scenery, probably hold the city for ransom, and confront my archenemy Wardrobe in an epic battle. Or she will share the role with the panda. I haven't decided if I want my heroes exclusive. Livia's reaction was unlike anything Ryan expected. He thought she would laugh, show skepticism, pat him on the back and leave him to his fate. Instead, the Oracle took his explanations without a word, as she digested them. Livia opened her mouth to say something, hastily closed it, and then joined her hands together on her lap. A flash of hesitation briefly crossed her face before her expression turned shy, like a precocious child afraid to ask something stupid and suffer mockery afterward. Ryan squinted at Livia, reading her mind. You want to come? Can I? The Auguste princess pleaded with a sheepish smile. She looked so adorable at that moment, that Ryan couldn't deny her. Still, the idea of someone as proper and dignified as Livia participating in something so silly clashed with the idea he had of her. You're sure? You haven't said no, Livia said with a grin. You do realize the danger involved? Which is exactly why I want to come, Livia said. I will never have the opportunity to do something like this outside of a time loop, due to all the ways it could go wrong. If you worry about my father, I could wear a mask and stick to my time leap ability. Nobody else outside my family knows about its details. Ryan crossed his legs and slouched on the pier, regretting not to have brought his cat with him. Miss Auguste, do you truly have what it takes to be a supervillain? It's not just a question of power, but presentation. Style, charisma, screen presence. We'll need to find you a costume, and a fearsome name. Minerva won't cut it. I have an extensive wardrobe, Livia said before trying to think of a good alias. As for the name, how about a Stamp? Ryan stared at her without a word. Time zone? Time out? Livia asked, growing more and more awkward with each new proposal. Her cheeks turned red at his continued silence. A clock? Why couldn't she see it? The perfect name, the one most appropriate for her power. One that oozed style and would transcend the realm of pop culture? The perfect household name, to go along with a power nobody could explain? Queen Crimson. The one and only. Isn't that a bit pedantic? Livia asked with a frown. Trust me, Ryan smirked while putting a comforting hand on her shoulder, it will do just fine. So? Len asked, as a blast door closed behind Ryan. Well, our Disney princess agreed to help with our cancer cure project, and to star in tomorrow's movie. The testing area reminded him of the interrogation chamber where he and Jasmine tested the power-boosting armor. A reinforced window separated a control room and its computers from an underground dome, where robotic arms manipulated a Dynamis-made knockoff elixir. "I'll swap her with Rakshasa as our ace in the hole." "Not the doll, you ruffian." Alchimo's voice echoed through loudspeakers. "Why do you keep dragging her into your messes? Trust me, she'll do well." T had been his main choice of a getaway driver during his drug cartel phase. Besides, she accepted when I asked nicely. She is too nice to say no to you, you disgusting excuse of a bioform. Perhaps, but from Ryan's experience, the doll would enjoy the trip. She suppressed strong criminal tendencies. "Anyway, how are things going with Mosquito?" "The synthesized, nutrient-rich blood does bolster his enhanced strength, as you suspected," Alchimo confirmed. "Early results are promising, though the effect does not last long. 1 hour on average." 1 hour was a long time, if exploited to its fullest. Ryan intended to bring Frank, Siren, and Acid Rain to Star Studio, but an additional heavy hitter would always help. The courier approached the window, standing next to Len. His best friend kept her arms crossed, observing the green knockoff beyond the glass with apprehension. She tried to keep her composure, but her true feelings were written all over her face. "Shorty, I'll ask one last time." Ryan took a deep breath. "Are you sure you want to do it? Or rather, do you want to watch it?" "I told you," Len said with a frown. I need to know, Rere. To get closure. I'm more worried it will open old wounds. Or that it will cause a dangerous reaction." "I have incinerators ready," Alchimo said, 4 flamethrowers dangling from the testing ground ceiling. All pointed at the knockoff. "If the worst comes to pass, I can send robots or call your black slime." "Rere, if our hypothesis is true, then Dynamis didn't just capture my father." Len's worried expression turned into one of anger. "They packaged him. Turned him into a product. Even if it's not. Even if it's not him, I can't let that stand. It's inhuman. I hope we're wrong. But I want to be sure." "And if we're right?" Ryan asked the right question. "If he's really inside Lab 66, what will you do? Let him out so he can kill again?" Len didn't offer an answer. She had no idea herself. "If you ask me," Braindead said, although nobody did, "if you truly think we can cure psychos, then why not one more? If there was something left to cure. If Dynamis truly used Bloodstream to make knockoffs, then they kept him in storage for almost 4 years. Who knew what Dr. Tyranno did to the bloody slime?" And truthfully, Ryan didn't want to help Bloodstream even if he was alive. He wanted the slime dead and buried. In any case, the testing would soon begin. A robotic arm dangled a pipette full of blood above the knockoff, while another opened the container. Len's blood. Preliminary tests showed no match between Micron's knockoff elixirs and Dynamis. Both achieved the same result through different methods. The bunker's robots hadn't yet managed to analyze Dynamis' substance, so Ryan suggested a more direct approach. If his theory about Bloodstream altering Len's blood to track her was correct, then it should react to the knockoff in some way. Subtle or obvious, a change should follow, and hidden cameras would film everything. Ryan's eyes focused on the green, swirling liquid inside the knockoff's glass flagon. Wyvern had served as this Hercules elixir's template. He wondered if the Draconic Knight in shining leotard would have participated in its creation, had she known how it was made. The robotic arm pressed the pipette, a single droplet falling from it. Ryan and Len held their breath, watching the liquid fall for a moment that seemed to stretch forever. The droplet hit the knockoff, and the elixir screamed. The knockoff's container exploded into a dozen shards, as its green content turned bloody red. The contents spilled all over the testing floor, bloating like cake paste in an oven. The minuscule amount of liquid grew, and grew, and grew as fast as Darkling when it devoured Adam. The shape of a twisted parody of a human face formed on the slime's surface, its deafening scream echoing through the reinforced window. A chill went down Ryan's spine, as he was brought back to his dark past. Back to the same terrible memories that night terror had awakened again, one loop ago. He could never forget that voice. Len let out a horrible scream of her own. Not one of pain, but of pure fear and horror. The scream of a traumatized victim, living through a 4-year-old nightmare all the way again. Her skin turned even paler, her nails scratching her cheek. Len. Ryan immediately held his best friend in his arms, hugging her tight against his chest. Len. Calm down. I'm here. The howling slime crawled on the ground towards the windows, sensing Len, smelling its lost daughter like a bloodhound desperate for a warm meal. The flamethrowers activated, torching the testing room. Flames as hot as Leo's surface vaporized the blob to dust, its horrifying scream turning into death throes. Only ashes and silence remained. Ryan didn't know how long he held Len in his arms afterward. Her scream had turned to tears, her hands covering her face as if she could shield her gaze from the terrible truth. Her nails had dug deep into her cheeks to draw blood. She was so fragile in his hands, he thought she might break in half. The courier let her cry into his chest, his eyes staring at the elixir's ashes. A terrible thought crossed his mind, alongside the sheer magnitude of Hector Manada's crimes. How many people in New Rome had drunk a knockoff elixir? Told continued. Thanks for listening.